We're very pleased to welcome to the studio Professor Debs Patten from the Department of Anatomy at Sunderland University, and Steve is going to chat with her.
All right, thanks a lot for coming in. Could you tell us about your experience about the bequeathal of bodies? When somebody thinks, no point in just shoving my body in the ground to rot away, I'll give it to science. What do they do?
I will do, Steve. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I think it's probably useful to think about why people donate first. And there are a number of reasons why people donate, and you've alluded to one of them. And that is that people want to do something useful with their body after they've died. Quite often they have the view that I'm finished with it, someone else might as well benefit from the use of my body. And that can be because they've either experienced good health care themselves and they want to give something back, or because they don't particularly have any religious views and they don't want to have a ceremony or a service. So that they typically are the main reasons why people donate, just to give something back.
Right, and what's been your experience with this bequeathal procedure then?
So I've worked in anatomy for about 20 years now, and I've been fortunate enough to work in a number of universities, 3 of which are in the northeast. And so I've been involved in the bequeathal process in all of those institutions. So typically what would happen is, if you wanted to donate your body to medical science, you would contact your local medical school. And when we say donate your body to medical science, that's the term that kind of is used in the general population. What it actually means is that your body will be used for education and training under the licence of the Human Tissue Authority, and that particular licence is anatomical examination. So you would contact the local university and they will either explain the process to you or send you out an information pack and all the necessary forms that you would need to complete in order to register to donate your body to a medical school. The other thing that you can do, and was probably done more frequently years ago, was that you can make a statement in your last will and testament that you wish to donate your body for the purposes of education, training and research. And the importance of both of those processes is that it's a witnessed and evidenced procedure. So you're making that statement while you have full mental capacity and someone else is witnessing that statement and signing it at the same time. And what that does then is it adheres to the code of consent that is so important, and an overarching code in all of the Human Tissue Act activities that are undertaken.
Is it possible to donate a part? Can I say I want my cornea?
You can separately donate your cornea. You can donate your brain to the brain bank. If you donated your brain to the brain bank, you could still donate your body. And you can donate your corneas and still donate your body. You couldn't donate your organs after death and then donate your body to a medical school for anatomical examination. So there are some things that are prohibitive, but then smaller parts like corneas and the brain.
And so if I decided, well, in fact I have decided, because I've donated my body to the medical school at the University of Newcastle.
Yes.
So it'll go into the anatomy department and be used for the anatomical education of what year students? When do they do this?
There's actually a couple of destinations now. So if you decide to donate your body, and at the time of your death, there are some checks that need to be made in terms of, is all of the paperwork in place? And there are some other checks that we might talk about later about conditions that would preclude you from donating your body. But once all of that process is agreed and the donation is accepted, then your body in a university will either be used to train undergraduate students, perhaps of medicine or dentistry or other allied healthcare professions, and it could also be used for surgical training. So consultants, for instance, need to learn and train for procedures, and that's another one of the activities that is allowed under the licence these days.
Right, okay, we'll explore those other issues that you've raised in the second part of our chat.
Okay.
But for the moment, could you please tell us what piece of music you'd like us to play for you and why you've chosen it?
I will. It's a song called Night and Day. It's by a band called the Polyphonic Spree, and they're a rock choral band. And my husband introduced them to me, and the reason I've picked it is because he always says, I want this played at my funeral, and I thought it was kind of topical for today. And it's just a very joyful song, and if you listen to the lyrics, you'll see it's about making the most of every day, and it always cheers me up. It's a really nice song.
Night and Day. Right, I'm talking to Professor Debs Patten, Professor of Anatomy at the University of Sunderland. That was a very pleasant piece of music. You choose it for your funeral, you said?
My husband would.
Right,
I haven't thought about my own yet.
Oh, I see, right, okay. What I'm interested in is, as I say, I have donated my body. Let's say I died in Aberystwyth in Wales.
Okay.
What would my wife have to do then?
So as long as your paperwork was in place, Steve, your wife would have to contact the university, and it would, if you've registered with Newcastle University, she would contact Newcastle, and then we would have to get your body up to the northeast, and we'd have to get your body up to the northeast, and it would have to be within a certain time frame, usually within 4 or 5 days. The university will pay the costs for that within a certain radius. It's about sort of 30 to 40 miles around the whole of the northeast. So your estate would probably have to pay pay against the difference in the journey.
Right, and my wife has said she wants to donate her body, but she hasn't filled in any paperwork. Can I just ring up if she dies tomorrow and say, I've got a body here, would you like?
No, I'm afraid not. No, she would have to have had registered, completed and filled in the forms correctly, or made a statement in her will and testament, and that again would have to be witnessed and dated accordingly. So a university or a medical school could never accept a donation that wasn't properly consented in law. So that's very important. And I think if people are thinking about donating their bodies, one of the really important things they must do is speak to their next of kin. If the next of kin is the person who is going to handle their affairs, then obviously they'll know about that. But quite often the next of kin isn't prepared for dealing with the whole process at the time of death. So I think it's a responsibility of the donor to kind of remind them that this is what they want to do, and just to
with their
mentally
dying
prepare
breath,
them.
you mean?
Not necessarily with their dying breath, but just over the years, kind of a gentle reminder, don't forget, this is what I want you to do. And
Right. Now, so my body's been through the medical school. Students have used it to learn about the anatomy of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
So who's responsible for the funeral now?
So at the point that anatomical examination is complete, all of the parts that have been dissected will be collected together, and your body and body parts will be cremated, and the university is responsible for that. If you wish to have a private funeral or cremation, then your next of kin could arrange that, and the university would generally help out with those arrangements. But again, the cost of that would be borne from your estate rather than the university.
Right.
So anything private or independent would, those arrangements would be your responsibility.
Yeah, I see. So
responsibility.
You've talked already about the absolute necessity of having the right paperwork. Are there any other things that might preclude the acceptance of the body by the university?
There certainly are. So if you, at the time of your death, required a post-mortem to establish the cause of death, then that would preclude you donating your body. If you, there are certain diseases and surgeries that would prevent you from donating your body. If you wish to be an organ donor, so if you wanted to donate your kidneys or your heart after your death, then you couldn't donate your body. You could donate your brain or your corneas, but not major organs. And then there are some diseases. So if you had a transmissible disease like HIV, hepatitis, MRSA, something like that, that would be an issue. Deep bed sores, peripheral edema, those kind of things. non-vascular dementia, so something like Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, that would prevent you from donating your body. And other things...
Can I interrupt you there?
Yes.
Why? Because I would have thought it would be very useful for students to look into the brain in such an instance.
In medical, so there's two reasons for that, really. So the first one is something like Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. It's unknown about the cause of transmission, and so you wouldn't accept somebody with that if you could help it. The second thing is that in medical schools and dental schools, when students are studying neuroanatomy, really you're looking to study normal anatomy in the first instance, and then later in your profession you might specialise in pathologies, but in the very first part of your career you're looking at normal anatomy in the first part of your studies.
So is there anything else that people need to know about this whole procedure and process and everything?
In terms of other diseases, there are a couple of other things. So if you had any major arthritic deformities, or if you had limbs removed, that might preclude a donation. And the other thing is some cancers. So in the past, if your body was destined for a medical school, cancer would have prohibited your donation, because again medical schools are looking to study a normal anatomy. But these days, because you can also donate for the purposes of surgical training, then cancer wouldn't necessarily prevent a donation. So I think that's important to say, because people need to know that, you know, if they have a certain condition, they still maybe can donate, or they definitely can't, and that helps them make that decision.
Yeah, terrific. Well, thank you very much for coming in, Professor Debs Patten.
Thank you for inviting me.
Gosh.